Hey everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Before we start, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who tuned into the last video. That was my first video here, so seeing people actually find it and check it out means a lot. Tonight we're going through 3 true stories. I always find playing Minecraft in the rain pretty relaxing, but it also has this weird, empty loneliness to it that fits these kinds of stories perfectly. The first one we're looking at today is honestly incredibly heavy. Turn the lights down, and let's just jump right into it. Story 1, The Ghost at the Party. This happened when I was 16. I'm 19 now, and it's easily the most messed up thing that's ever happened to me. It was summer, so I didn't have to worry about school. I ended up going to a party that some of the older kids from my school were throwing. Honestly, I only went because I thought it would make me look cool if people knew I was hanging out with an older crowd. While I was there, this guy started talking to me. He showed me where the drinks were and said his name was Jason. He told me he was 25, and when I told him I was only 16, he just said I looked older. Looking back, I should have walked away right then. Instead, I made a massive mistake. I had to use the bathroom, so I asked him to hold my cup. When I came back out, he handed it back to me, and without thinking, I finished it pretty fast. He made me another one right after and basically followed me around for the rest of the night. About 10 or 15 minutes later, I suddenly felt incredibly sick and dizzy. Jason told me I should go outside for some fresh air, so I followed him out. It was really hard to think straight at that point. The rest is just a blur. I vaguely remember getting into a car and pieces of the drive, but then I completely passed out. When I woke up, I was alone in a bed in a room I'd never seen before. I was still really woozy, just laying there trying to figure out if I was home or what. When I finally sat up, the panic hit. I wasn't in my own bed, and I wasn't wearing my own clothes. I was in a completely different, matching pajama set. It took me a bit to connect the dots, but it meant this guy had entirely changed my clothes while I was unconscious just to put me in these pajamas. Before I could even process it, Jason came into the room with breakfast, coffee and 2 waffles. I think he genuinely thought he was being nice. I'm not going to go through a detailed retelling of the whole week. Every day was exactly the same, and honestly, I just don't want to dig it all up. But basically, for an entire week, he kept me trapped and made me act like a living doll in his house. He watched me eat, watched me change into the outfits he picked out, and even followed me around the house constantly. He kept spiking my drinks with things to keep me heavily medicated and force me into a compliant mood. It didn't really work, except for a couple of hours a day when the effects hit the hardest. Then, for no reason I can even guess, it just stopped. He took me out to his car, put a blindfold over my head, and drove for a while. When he stopped, he pushed me out of the car, sped off, and that was the last time I ever saw him. I started walking down the side of the road until my body just gave out. I didn't faint, I just couldn't physically take another step and collapsed into the grass. Someone driving by saw me fall and called the police. An ambulance took me to the hospital, and the cops showed up to find out what happened. They already knew I was missing and figured out who I was pretty fast, so they called my parents. Next thing I know, my whole family is there crying and just thankful I was alive. I did everything I could to help the cops identify him, and they did a really thorough investigation, but they found absolutely nothing. The guy was a total ghost. They questioned nearly everyone at that party, but Jason wasn't his real name. The phone number anyone had for him turned out to be a disconnected burner phone. They never caught him. It was incredibly traumatic, and I hope it's the worst thing I ever have to deal with. But even after all that, I know it could have been so much worse. I don't know why he never physically harmed me beyond keeping me there, but I'm thankful. But knowing he's still out there somewhere, completely anonymous, that's the part that keeps me up at night. To the guy from the party who called himself Jason, let's never meet again. Story 2, The Polka Dot Dress. This next story takes place back in 2014, when I was only 6 years old. I was born and raised in Borna, Germany, before my family eventually moved to Kosovo. Borna was a remarkably quiet, calm town. It was the kind of place where a lot of older people came to retire because the nightlife was basically non-existent. After about 6 p.m., the streets would completely clear out as everyone headed inside for the evening. Because of that, the roads were entirely deserted on this particular afternoon. The summer weather was beautiful, and the sky had this amazing sunset with vivid orange stripes. My mom was riding her bike just ahead of me, and I was pedaling along behind her on my small BMX bike. Right around the time the streets emptied out, my mom turned a corner and entered the local park, completely disappearing from my line of sight. For a moment, I was totally alone on the street. That's when I noticed someone in the distance. At first, I didn't think much of it, just a woman riding a bicycle. But as she got closer, she became an image that my 6-year-old self would never forget. I can still picture her perfectly today. She was wearing a typical summer dress covered in white polka dots, but her feet were completely bare and caked in dirt. Her bicycle was making this horrific, loud screeching noise, sounding like it hadn't been oiled in years. But the most terrifying part was her appearance. From head to toe, she was absolutely drenched in a deep, dark red fluid, looking like she had been through something incredibly violent. Despite looking like she was severely injured, she maintained total composure. In fact, she was smiling. As she looked across the street dead into my eyes, her smile twisted into this bizarre, haunting laughter. Because my mom had already gone into the park and the street was completely dead, the reality hit me. It was just me and her. I completely panicked. I bolted away on my small BMX, praying with everything I had that she wouldn't start chasing me. When I looked back in sheer terror, she had stopped completely. She was just standing there in the middle of the empty road, staring straight at me. I pedaled as fast as my legs could carry me, flew into the park to catch up to my mom, and desperately told her what I had just seen. We never saw that woman again, but to this day, she still completely haunts my memories. To the creepy woman in the polka dot dress, let's never meet again. And now, to the last story of the night. The attempt. This last one happened about 20 years ago, when I was still living at home with my parents. Our house was a ranch-style layout with a basement, and I had a bedroom down there with windows right at ground level, which, unfortunately, turned out to be the most important part of this story. One night, the whole house was asleep. When I finally woke up, the police were already there. Someone had smashed one of those ground-level windows in an attempt to get inside, but thankfully, they couldn't actually fit through the opening. They'd tried the back door first. There was clear evidence of them messing with the lock and trying to smash off the doorknobs before moving to the window. When the police were checking things out, they found blood on the glass. The intruder had actually pushed a stack of books that were sitting in front of the window. Some of them ended up outside in the grass, while the rest were scattered all over my basement floor. It was absolutely terrifying. For a long time, I actually kind of forgot about it, but my dad brought it up again recently because a friend of his had just been robbed. My mom always thought the intruder's goal was to hurt us, not to take our stuff. We lived in a normal middle-class neighborhood with similar houses. It just didn't seem like the kind of place that would be targeted for a robbery, especially since there were much bigger, wealthier houses right across the street. My dad used to say it was just a robbery because he didn't want us to be scared, but now he admits he doesn't think that was the case at all. They never caught whoever it was, and they never came back. But even years later, thinking about someone standing right outside my bedroom window in the middle of the night still gives me chills. To whoever tried to break in that night, let's never meet again. And that wraps it up for tonight. If these stories brought a chill to your night, please leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which one hit the hardest. Stay safe, lock your doors, and try to survive the night.